Hello and welcome another edition of Coach's Corner. Really excited this week. We've been talking so much about programs across the Southeast, and everybody's really anxious to hear from some of the Sun Belt Conference schools. And I thought we'd kick that off with Georgia State University and its recruiting coordinator slash hitting coach, Lars Davis. Lars, I want to say thank you for making some time. I know it's a busy time of year with recruiting, but thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, very, very welcome. I really want to know a little bit about your background. Is you're from Canada. You played junior college. You find your way into the U.S. You play baseball at Illinois. You go on to have a great minor league career, and now you're at Georgia State. What led you to Georgia State University as a coach?
So kind of my whole coaching career, I knew as a pro player in 2014 when I was kind of on the way out. Every player does have to come to those terms at some point in their career, and I had a very real conversation with myself, and that was the time. I was fortunate enough to be able to fall into a volunteer role at the University of Florida to start my coaching career with Coach O'Sullivan there, and learned a tremendous amount in the 7 years that I was there. What really led me to Georgia State was I was in that transition period between the volunteer and the full-time third coach. Where we were at was it had been denied multiple times. It was something that kept getting put on the back burner with COVID. And after sitting down, discussing it with the staff at Florida, discussing it with my wife and family, we realized it was going to be something where I needed to get out and become a full-time hitting coach, become a full-time paid assistant to continue to move through the college ranks. And, after meeting with Coach Stromdahl here at Georgia State, realized it was going to be a great fit to kind of be on the ground floor of building up a program, and, have loved it for the last 4 years, going into my fifth year.
Would love to talk a little bit about the campus. What makes Georgia State, a lot of people, when they're starting their college process with regard to due diligence and so forth, on occasion will begin to look into these schools throughout the Southeast, but they don't have times to visit. What makes Georgia State campus so special as a college student?
Well, so for our campus in the U.S. News and World Report, we're number 4 in the country in first year experiences for freshman students. They come down, they love the campus. It's a little different than a traditional campus. We are in downtown Atlanta, so it is an urban campus right in the heart of the city of Atlanta. So it's a really cool, unique experience rather than maybe in a smaller traditional college town. Obviously, Atlanta, very, very big city. We've got everything to do. I mean, from the campus, you're walking distance over to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, State Farm Arena, everything that downtown has to offer. So that's a really unique setup from a academic standpoint. From the athletic standpoint with baseball, and where I'm sitting right now, I'm sitting in the old Turner Field, which is where our main locker room is, where our cages are, where our development center is. So we are right in the Braves' old stadium where they were at from 97 all the way through 2016. So there's a lot of history here. We have a lot of really cool facilities that, again, they're former professional facilities that the Braves used for 20 years here in downtown Atlanta. So that part's really cool. We're also building a brand new stadium on the old Fulton County site. So where the Braves were at before Turner Field, that's where our new stadium is going to go, and it should be opening up here for the first pitch of the 2026 season.
Well, a lot of parents, when they start, doing their college selection process, really, want to talk about facilities, amenities, schedule, things like that. One of the intriguing parts that of your program, particularly in today's world, you've had a lot of student athletes that have gone through Georgia State, and then ultimately, during this new portal wave or stage, have gone on to play at P4 programs. What do you think it is about your program that makes it so appealing from a student athlete's perspective, but also with regard to development?
Absolutely. It's, ever since the one-time transfer rule has gone away, and the multiple transfers have just kind of become normal. It is the new normal for college baseball. And you can either adapt to the new world, or you can sit there and try to, you know, um, kind of be. You won't, if you don't adapt, you're going to die, right? And so what we've really leaned into from both a recruiting and from a coaching standpoint is our development. And we've really had a lot of success on both sides of the ball, both pitching and hitting, in recruiting very talented young players that are able to step on the field immediately, work their craft in the development, but also get better playing the game. What you're seeing is the guys that are moving on to the P4 levels, moving on to pro ball, are guys that have had excellent years, but they've also got to play. And so one of the biggest things is we are not scared to play freshmen. Last year, we had a freshman first baseman, played in all 56 games. Our shortstop was a freshman. Our center field, we kind of platooned between two players that were both freshmen. So we're not afraid to get them in there. I would say about 30% of our at-bats last year, maybe even upwards of 35%, went to freshmen. So we're going to get them in there. You're going to be thrown right into the fire. It won't be a sink or swim, right? It's not just, hey, you couldn't do it, let's put somebody else in there. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a development through the fall. It's going to be working through our system with hitting, and then it's going to be battle tested in the spring. We sit down as hitters and we review individually every 3 or 4 games to see if we're on track and make sure we're doing what we need to do, and continue our development through there.
I want to remind parents, Baseball Blue Book, the app, when you're curious and you want to do a little bit more homework on Georgia State or Coach Davis, you can do that through the Blue Book app. Recently updated, so go ahead, create a profile. Make sure you do all your due diligence with regard to Georgia State camps. Look at their schedule, maybe go down and watch a practice or 2 in the fall. Coach, one of the dynamics of college athletics that is often not what I feel is not discussed nearly enough is the dual sport or multi-sport athlete, and with that late bloomer that may be benefiting from being a multi-sport athlete earlier in their athletic career. Talk a little bit about, from a recruiting coordinator perspective, how do you view athletes that may have been a football, baseball, hockey, baseball, and now looking to make baseball their full-time endeavor in college?
Absolutely. I might be a little biased because I was a multi-sport athlete all the way until I got into college. Growing up, I played hockey, volleyball, basketball, baseball, and I did 2 sports. Being from Canada, we couldn't be outside for at least half the year.
Right.
I did 2 sports all the way through high school, right, all the way until I got to college. So I might be a little biased on that side, but a lot of times what you'll see with those multi-sport athletes is you're going to see athleticism in places that specialized athletes may not. Now, I'm not saying that, you should, if baseball is your passion, that it shouldn't be what you're pursuing or the only thing you're doing. But with those multi-sport athletes, I do see a lot of kids going earlier and earlier to one sport only. You are only a baseball player, or you are only a specific position on the baseball field. And some of the best athletes that we have had that have come through this program that I've seen have been guys that have done multi-sport all the way through, right? They are just athletes in the sense of they move incredibly well. They have an overall different strength than some of the other specialized players. And so I absolutely love them. I think they're phenomenal. One of the best players that we have had come through our program was a 2-sport athlete even into college. He transferred in after his first year playing at a different school as quarterback, came in and wanted to just specialize with baseball after his first year of college, and turned into a fantastic player.
One of the really unique dynamics to the Sun Belt Conference is that you've had 2 regional hosts, Southern Miss and Coastal. Talk a little bit about, we talk so much P4, 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 but Sun Belt Conference is just that is a giant of a conference. So talk a little bit about the mental toughness that's needed, and obviously the physical toughness that's needed to go through a season in the Sun Belt Conference.
Absolutely. You saw Coastal Carolina, World Series finalists this year. Every year we're putting multiple teams into regionals. It's not just who wins the conference tournament. We had 2 regional hosts this year, including 1 national seed with Coastal, right? It can be a very, very daunting schedule Part of it is how spread out the conference is. We're anywhere from Virginia all the way over to Texas. Obviously, Texas State leaving for the Pac-12, and so we're bringing on Louisiana Tech in the coming years here. But it's spread out. The travel can be a little bit difficult when you're playing multiple weekends on the road. But it's from a talent perspective, it is top to bottom, incredibly deep conference. We had multiple top 10 round picks this year. We had multiple draft picks throughout our conference, plus free agent signings. So every weekend you are facing professional arms. You're facing professional players. I know a lot of the focus now is on the P4, but every year you're seeing more and more of these what are you're calling mid-major conferences. Start to work their way into regionals, win regionals, and become hosts.
One of the really interesting, and I had a couple of conversations with some coaches down in Florida, and they really speak very highly of you with regard to your hitting acumen, your development of hitters. And in today's world, we get into social media battles and so forth and so on. Hitting is incredibly hard. And I really would love for you to share your philosophy when you're working with a incoming high school athlete, going into, that mode of becoming a college hitter, the mental approach, the physical grind of, getting your reps. Talk a little bit about what makes a high school hitter stand out to you as a potential recruit, and then how do you help hitters with regard to mental as well as physical development with regard to becoming a college hitter?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things that we're always looking for, as for high school players in general, hitters and pitchers, is number one. I talked about it before, is athleticism, right? The guys that typically move the best are the guys that are going to be the best athletes. Those will be the guys that are going to perform the best historically overall. So that's going to be number one. How do you move both on offense, on defense? How do you swing the bat? How are you fully in the ground? Are you swinging it aggressively? Right. It doesn't mean that you have to be completely out of control and falling down on every swing, but are you trying to impact that baseball? And then the biggest thing that I want to see as a hitter is I actually do want to see what you do after a failed at bat. How do you recover your next at bat? Right. It's great to see. I'd love to see you go out there, you hit 3 or 4 home runs. Everybody's happy. You're having a career day. That's great. But at some point, I've got to see how you adapt from a bad game. How do you handle that failure? How do you handle a guy that might have your number? Because that is going to lead into that approach, that mental game. How do you make those adjustments, which are so important in the game today? Going through how we go ahead. Sorry.
No. What I really find intriguing is today's hitters really don't have a game situation approach. It's just, they're up there trying to take donkey hacks, and, you're down by 2 runs, you're leading off an inning, are you being patient and waiting for a strike? Talk a little bit about that mental dynamic from a professional approach, understanding the game situation and what that at bat calls for in that situation.
Right. And one of our, so we've got 4 pillars here that we lean on for our approach. They're standard throughout the program. It's going to be trust your approach, dominate your strike zone, execute your plan, and compete on every pitch. Those are our 4 pillars. Those are our non-negotiables for hitting. Everything else is going to be individualized. And even within those are going to be individualized. Obviously, your approach, how good you are in certain areas of the strike zone. Not all strikes are going to be the same for every hitter. They can't be. Right. I was, as a cross-handed guy, I was a left-handed hitter, right-handed thrower. I had that traditional left-handed swing that anything kind of middle to down and in. I just crushed that up and away. I had a little scoop in my swing, and I wasn't as good at it. So I had to learn how to lay off those. We will talk with every single hitter about what they're good at, what they're not as good at, and how to dominate their strike zone. But one of those other pillars is execute your plan. And so before every single at bat, I don't need to know what it is, but our guys are going up to the plate with a plan. And part of our development through the fall is talking them through it before they go up so they understand. By the end of the fall, I want them to be able to articulate to me what their plan is in their own words when they're going up to the plate. And then we will review why that was either a good plan or how that plan may need to be altered for future at bats. So, hey, what's my plan here? Hey, I need to get on base because, like you said, we are down by 2 and the game tying run is coming up behind me. Um, I've got a runner on second. I need to move him over so that we can score that run in multiple different ways, get to third base with one out. There are times, in my opinion, for what some hitting coaches may call selfish at bats. We're up by 3. There's 2 outs, nobody on. Okay, hey, this is your time to go ahead and take that massive hack. Try to get yours. But what we really focus on here is how to be an incredibly dynamic offense, how each individual fits into that offense. And we have been in the top 3 or 4 runs scored in the last 3 years in our conference at the end of the year because of that.
One of the dynamics of high schools, or we could call it travel baseball, is that a lot of young pitchers are trying to pump it up for a gun or somebody behind the backstop. They might not see a lot of slide piece or elite changeups, things like that. They see velo and spin, typically the Slurvy 12-6 or 11-7. Can you talk about that transition as a high school hitter going into college? Now you're facing advanced sliders, advanced changeups that can be thrown in plus counts. So you really have to have a good approach with regard to strike zone awareness and understand that slider. You might want to take that backside as opposed to trying to roll it over and, that approach. Talk a little bit about how you transition from high school hitters into those college hitters with regard to elite stuff out there on the bump.
Absolutely. And so one of the biggest things that we really lean into, especially early on, and I mentioned it earlier, is that dominate your strike zone. From the very first time you're seeing a moving ball, whether it be short overhand toss, whether it be flips, whether it be Coach BP, the Feel Good BP machine, whatever it is that we want our guys to hunt their pitch. That's it. Right? You'll see so many young guys, they want to come into the cage and they will swing at everything from nose to toes, east to west. Right? They're just swinging. They just want to come in there and they just want to swing. And what that'll start leading to, especially as you start seeing those pitches that are tunneling better, you're going to start seeing more chase out of the zone. You're going to start seeing more swing and miss just because the stuff is more elite. And so one of the very first things that we are going to lean on is we are going to track as much as we possibly can with our data, with TrackMan, HitTrax, Rapsodo. We're going to track pitch locations. We're going to track swing rates, and we're going to show our guys what they are doing in terms of chasing, what they are doing in terms of attacking pitches in the zone. And so with that, our guys will learn just through an organic process of pure repetition of how to really start zoning in on their pitch and their pitch alone. We were at the end of the regular season this year. We were 6th in the country in walks. And so we were in a position where we were taking tough pitches because just through that training, we were able to have our guys identify where they were good, which pitches they needed to attack, and which pitches they could leave alone. We are always going to make the end of our practice harder than our games. We always will. We will crank our machines up to 100 miles an hour. We will throw that slider that would rival the best big league slider that you can imagine, and we will mix both of them into a hitting session. It can be frustrating. I know there's especially young guys that will walk out of the cage or they'll walk out of BP, and you can kind of see the look on their face. They're exasperated. They've been in that, hey, hit some easy BP mode, feel good, see how many balls you can yank to the pull side. And we want to make sure that our practice is harder than the game, that we get in there that, hey, this is actually significantly easier than what you were just put through this week. So a lot of it is through discussing, a lot of it is through showing our guys what they're good at. But the vast majority of where guys are getting better is simply by being thrown into that fire in a controlled environment that is going to be more difficult than the game.
Going to ask you a question I really haven't asked anyone else before, but I think you're the perfect coach to ask this question of. I think as parents and student athletes that are going through youth baseball, particularly, and into high school, they become so reliant on instruction and lessons and practice, but they don't have that inner understanding of the value of individual reps, like doing things on your own time, getting work in on your own with nobody watching. Can you talk a little bit about the value of, whether it's self-toss, whether it's tee work, anything that young hitters can do by themselves, and don't wait for that 30-minute lesson or that practice at 6 p.m. Talk a little bit about the value of individual work as a hitter.
Absolutely. One of the things that we've got here with Georgia State is our cages are self-sufficient. You can go anywhere from one to all of our hitters can be in there to have something to do. Everything can be done on your own. The guys that have had some of the most success that I've even known in baseball in general are guys that are in there a lot on their own. They're doing their own thing. They're self-organizing. They're figuring out what really works for them. Um, but even growing up, just kind of personally, that was where I kind of figured out what I was really good at. What I was good at as a player was playing wiffle ball in the backyard, was playing,
Bingo,
you know,
bingo.
pick up baseball. Like that was playing with the mini sized golf balls and a broomstick. Those were the things I remember growing up playing in the backyard. Every night I would grab my dad when he'd come home from work, and we had our own. There were rules that didn't even or that didn't resemble baseball rules, right? They were really funny, and what was a single, what was it, what was that, but it was a competition, right? He was not going to let me win, I was not going to let him win, and it turned into a very real learning, like a learning experience for me. Like, this is how you have to compete. Like, it doesn't matter if it's playing a pickup game or this or that. And again, I'm not going to say anything negative about the developmental world, because there is a place for it. I've been through it, I've done it. There's a lot of great information out there. Obviously, with you've seen it with the pitching, with driveline, and hitting is starting to catch up now. To rival what you're seeing on the mound. But I can't stress enough just how much just learning how to hit a fungo, or tossing, just the self toss, the tee work, the making up your own games in the cage really help you self-organize and to find out how you move well, how well you do certain movements, and then just that compete, right? The playing against each other. We will always have something here at Georgia State at the end of our day, whether it be in our small groups, our batting practice, our inter squad game. Doesn't really matter. We're going to have some kind of competition with a winner and a loser. Because at the end of the day, that's the wins are what matter in college baseball, right? The team that wins the most games, or is the winner at the end of the year, is your champion. So we're going to foster that competitive atmosphere, whether it be between two hitters, a hitter and a pitcher, infielders, outfielders, within certain position groups. So we are always going to find some way to make mini competitions throughout the day.
I want to just jump on one little nugget that Coach Davis just threw out there. When I was a coach, I used to always take my hitters and say, okay, today we're going to hit fungos. We're going to play a game and we're going to do nothing but, hit fungos. And if you watch young hitters try to hit a fungo, it is really, it's interesting to see all the young hitters when you just say to them, okay, here's the ball, here's the fungo, put a ball in play. And they get so nervous. So, parents, I really hope you take that to heart. That's something you can do in a cage, do in the backyard with a wiffle ball. You can do it any myriad of different ways, but definitely do that. Coach, one of the things a lot of parents will ask me, particularly about the Sun Belt, where are you recruiting? How are you recruiting? Are the high school athletes still part of your process? Is the portal a big deal? How do you go about, what's the approach at Georgia State with regard to recruiting?
For sure. And so, obviously with the new rules that have kind of been put in place with the house settlement, with the little bit smaller rosters now going down to 34, the expanded scholarships, there's a lot of things that are still in flux, and it's going to take a few years for all schools to kind of figure out where they're at. Historically, what we've done and where we're still at now is we still recruit high school very heavily. One of the biggest reasons is we have found that is our best base of culture. That's going to be the core of our team. That is going to set the standard moving forward. Again, there are great portal players, and we've been very successful in the portal. Some of our most talented players have come out of the portal for our 1 year guys. But a lot of times what we're trying to do with that, we are trying to almost backfill where maybe guys have not progressed quite as far as they needed to at the time as a freshman, and they still need another year before they're ready to go. And so we have to grab somebody out of the portal. We had a high school position player this year taken in the draft, and so we're going to have to backfill that one with another infielder out of the portal as well. We had a couple of guys that elected to go into the portal for their grad season. and I wish them nothing but the best of luck. They were phenomenal guys for the Georgia State program. With those guys leaving, sometimes we know they're planning on leaving as their grad year. They communicate that before. Sometimes it happens late. And obviously, as a college recruiter, we've got to make sure that we have the best team possible to play the next year. So, we're going to try to bring in, a lot of times what we'll do with bringing in guys out of the portal is we are going to bring in some of the younger guys, some of the guys that either elected to go to a P4 program or they elected to go somewhere. They may not have got as much playing time as they wanted. They want to come back and find their way onto the field here. And like I said, our shortstop this past year was a redshirt freshman. Our center fielder was a redshirt freshman that didn't play in their previous program. And so being able to bring them back, get them the at-bats and the development they need has been a very, very, very good thing for their development.
One of the things that you and I had talked about before we started live here was the value that Georgia State places on academics. And we as an industry, as a sport, we don't talk enough about the academic dynamic and the value that it provides to families and obviously student athletes with regard to reduction of cost for the degree at Georgia State. But talk a little bit about how that dynamic with regard to the academics plays a vital role for affordability at Georgia State.
Absolutely. So for anybody that doesn't know, so in state with Georgia State, we have it's called the Hope Scholarship. And as a high school student, as a Georgia resident, if you have an above a 3.0 in your core classes, there's the list of them. If you have and maintain above a 3.0, your tuition is covered at an in-state public school. And so right there, that cuts off the largest single bill that families have at the start of each semester, right? You don't have to pay that tuition bill. It's covered by the academic scholarship. Same thing for some out-of-state students. The benchmark is slightly higher at a 3.7 GPA, either high school or transfer. We're able to eliminate out-of-state fees, which a lot of schools have. Ours at Georgia State are north of about $20,000 for that out-of-state fees. So those two things right there cut out significant bills for families directly off the top. And when it comes to distributing scholarship dollars, we're able to give kids a little bit more money because their academics are high, right? We're able to shift that money into some of those other parts of the scholarship that are able to be covered rather than having to cover that tuition bill because their GPA doesn't meet those benchmarks.
Final question, Coach, and that is with regard to how you like to be contacted. Are you active on social media? Do you watch videos of prospective student athletes on social media? And most importantly, how do you like to be contacted by a potential student athlete?
Absolutely. And so I'm quite active in viewing social media. I'm not, a really active poster out there. That's that's not really my style of communication. But I view absolutely every single direct message. That's kind of doom scrolling, but my feed on X it's all just, it's the algorithm has done what you click on, and it's just nothing but, uncommitted high school kids, uncommitted portal kids. Like that's just everything that I'll see. I'll scroll through there for a good period during the night. People can reach me. My phone number is on the Georgia State website. You're more than welcome to contact me if you're interested in Georgia State. And my email address is on there as well. So any method of communication, I'm absolutely open to. One thing I will tell to, prospective student athletes is just due to the volume that a lot of coaches and recruiting coordinators get, unfortunately, we're not always able to respond to everybody. And so does not mean that they're not read. It does not mean that they're not seen. Unfortunately, sometimes we're just not able to get to every single one of them. Same thing with younger kids. Understand we cannot communicate until August 1 of your junior year, right? It doesn't matter how many, if you're currently, this will start the period for the 2027s. But, if you're a 28, a 29, or a 2030 high school kid, no matter how hard you try and email and phone and text, as soon as I find out that you're in that class, I've got to end that communication if you didn't state that up ahead. If you stated it, I can't even reach out to contact you.
Well, I think it's important for parents to understand, allow your student athlete to be, take control and be accountable for their process, contact coaches directly, but listen to those words. If you're a 28, 29, I can't even believe I'm about to say this, or a 2030, don't worry about college recruiting. get yourself prepared for obviously your rising junior fall, that August 1st time period. Well, Lars, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I really, really appreciate you taking some time to share not only about your background, but about Georgia State and the Sun Belt Conference. So best of luck in the future. And if we can ever be of any help, please let us know.
Well, thanks for having me on today, Coach.
Absolutely. Thank you, Coach. I really appreciate that. That was awesome.